have you become?
I am what you made me.
Welcome back, everyone. This will be my full Star Wars Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3 video. We finally got a whole bunch of Hayden Christensen, Darth Vader, and Anakin Skywalker, surprisingly, with James Earl Jones coming back to do the voice. One of our first rematches between them of the series. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs to break down, so if you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. We're doing a giveaway for Disney Plus memberships. All you have to do to enter is be a subscriber and let me know what your favorite part of their rematch was during the episode. Careful for spoilers if you haven't seen the episode yet, but we could talk about Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi rematch all day long. There's so much to unpack from their reunion during the episode. This is their first actual reunion and the first time that Obi-Wan Kenobi has ever seen Anakin Skywalker wearing the Darth Vader Sith armor. And that's only the half of it. Like, apparently Obi-Wan Kenobi has a brother and a family out there somewhere, so there are potentially other young Force-sensitive Kenobis that can show up in other Star Wars live-action projects. But I'll start at the beginning of the episode and we'll just work our way through shot by shot talking about Easter eggs, WTF moments as we go along. One of the weird things about the series is they're not calling the episodes by different special titles. They're just calling this Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4, all the way up to Part 6 because it's a 6-episode series. It's meant to be more like a movie that they chopped into 6 different parts. But they start the episode with that brand new John Williams Obi-Wan Kenobi theme music for the episode. And throughout the episode, you probably picked up a lot of familiar themes from the original trilogy. There's a lot of John Williams baked into the new music for the series, especially when they have a lot of Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, and Obi-Wan Kenobi moments. But as predicted, he begins this episode again, also calling for Qui-Gon Jinn's help, just further setting up a big cameo scene for him later in the series. I literally just posted a video all about Qui-Gon Jinn showing up on the series, so I'll post a link for that down in the description below.
Are you there, Master?
There have been several Easter eggs already for him actually showing up and teaching Obi-Wan Kenobi to become a Force ghost, and he just keeps calling for him, so I think eventually we're going to hear him speaking to him in new dialogue. The actual opening scene is him just processing everything, realizing that Anakin Skywalker's still alive, Darth Vader is out there, and they have this big montage of Darth Vader suiting up after he comes out of his bacta tank in his castle on Mustafar. While that's going on, he's busy having this PTSD flashback to all the different prequel movies in specific moments, like moments from Revenge of the Sith, moments of Anakin Skywalker dialogue, Qui-Gon Jinn's voiceover dialogue, Yoda's voiceover dialogue, just talking about pain, also Anakin blaming the Jedi and Obi-Wan for everything bad that had happened to him, which he does again later in the episode when he's in full Darth Vader Sith armor. But obviously because Qui-Gon Jinn hasn't come back as a Force spirit to speak to him yet, all the Qui-Gon Jinn voiceover dialogue is from Phantom Menace before he wound up dying. Love the way they end that montage too, with you hearing Darth Vader's heavy breathing sound as the rest of the armor gets put on him. And it is meant to be Hayden Christensen actually underneath the armor, unless they have him do some crazy action scenes in later episodes, then they would have a stunt double do that stuff, but mostly it's supposed to be Hayden Christensen. And just like the classic trilogy, it is James Earl Jones doing his voice when he has the armor on.
Where is he?
Everything with him just laying into the Inquisitors, not caring about them, is right out of the canon. Darth Vader really did not care about what happened to anybody within the Empire. Now, like, he doesn't care about the Inquisitors during this. Like, oh, he's dead, Grand Inquisitor? Who cares about him? I only care about you finding Obi-Wan Kenobi. Don't fail me, or I'll probably kill you too. What's going on inside his head right now is that the last 10 years, yes, he's been hunting down the various Force sensitives, the other Jedi, trying to turn them and killing the ones that would not turn to the dark side. That's all about Reva's arc. I'll talk about that in a second too, because there are a couple moments later in the episode where they reference that we don't know what happens to the younglings. We never see them again. That's because they either get turned to the dark side and become Inquisitors like Reva, or they just wind up killing them. But one of the funnier things about Darth Vader, this is kind of an in-joke with the fandom, is that he will kill anybody, Empire or Rebellion, doesn't matter, anyone who displeases him. They set up this whole running plotline with Reva being super ambitious and kind of explaining that she wants the new position of Grand Inquisitor. But like we talked about during my episode 2 video, I do not think that he's totally dead. Like, unless they completely break canon, which I guess is possible, but I'm not expecting it. They're sort of setting her up to get her own comeuppance, like your ambition will be your own downfall. When he tells Krennic not to choke, quote-unquote, on his ambition, as he's literally force choking him. They also set up all this infighting within the Inquisitors too, this big rivalry between all of them. So as much as they all want to find Obi-Wan Kenobi and either kill him or torture him for a long time, it sounds like everybody within the Inquisitors ranks also want to do that to Reva as well as each other as well. One of the other cool things you probably detected under this is they have some new Darth Vader music that they're playing under this. It's obviously echoes of the original trilogy theme music. Like every time you see Darth Vader on screen, there's echoes of that classic John Williams theme music. But a lot of this is brand new music for these characters. And even though Obi-Wan Kenobi's having this big PTSD flashback, he does wind up helping fix Leia's droid, Lola, which I think will probably wind up helping them later in the timeline. I think that's why they tried to show you that Lola was pretty useful in the first episode when they introduced her character. And yes, it does look kind of like the robots from Batteries Not Included, and they are, as predicted, selling it as a toy in real life right now. They arrive at Mapuzo, which is meant to be another backwater mining planet in the Mid-Rim. Remember, a lot of the series is taking place in and around the Mid-Rim, which is where Alderaan is located. It's closer to the Emperor's locus of power. The further out you go in the galaxy, like once you get to the Outer Rim, the Empire is still a big presence, but they have way less forces that far out. That's why they keep saying that a lot of the Jedi who are hiding out, the people that make it through the Underground Railroad that they have, go to the Outer Rim and take up new identities. For example, right now, Ahsoka Tano is in hiding in another Outer Rim planet. Grogu is also currently hiding out in some other Outer Rim planet that we don't know about. When they arrive at the port, there's an R5 droid. There's actually a bunch of R5 droids throughout the episode. They introduce this new type of Ned B droid that's working in a bunch of different capacities while they're mining the planet. There's this whole subplot with it not being able to speak, like the droids can't speak, but they do seem like they want to help them. I think they'll wind up paying that off in next week's episode. The droids will somehow try to help them fight the Empire. The real big WTF moment here, though, is Obi-Wan Kenobi legit having a hallucination of Anakin Skywalker, just further foreshadowing their first reunion later in the episode. It's not meant to be a Force ghost Anakin or a trick of the Force or anything, or like a Force vision. It's just like a legit mental PTSD hallucination. He's still in that headspace where he's thinking about the reveal that Anakin is still alive, so he's just thinking about Anakin Skywalker in general. Then when they jump back to the Inquisitor storyline, we see the Fortress Inquisitorius for the first time, and I believe they're calling their ship here the Scythe. The fortress is located on one of the other moons of Mustafar in the Mustafar system, so it's pretty close to Darth Vader's castle, but it's not on the same planet. It looks pretty close to what it looks like during Star Wars Rebels, during Jedi Fallen Order. It's featured during a lot of different things, so a lot of you have probably seen versions of this in different aspects before. They do a bunch of stuff here. It's basically a facility for keeping the Inquisitor's military forces, like there are a bunch of other random stormtroopers running around. They use it for torturing Jedi or Force sensitives who won't turn to the dark side and become Inquisitors in their quest to find more who survived Order 66. They also use it for basic training for the people who do wind up turning to the dark side. They set this whole running storyline with younglings that have been captured too, so there might be other younglings somewhere inside this fortress that Obi-Wan winds up helping rescue. But I think the whole thing with younglings is more of a reference to Reva's storyline and talking about what happened to her, like what is her actual story, why did she turn to the dark side. They give you a little bit of a tour of it, we'll probably see more of it in later episodes too. When she walks through the hangar bay into the meeting room, they play a version of the Imperial March. It's like a slightly different version that they composed for this episode. I believe in the background here too, they have a bunch of lightsabers on display from Jedi who they've either killed or they've turned to the dark side. They continue to set this big rivalry that she has with the fifth brother, the other Inquisitors. This other female Inquisitor is the fourth sister. She's the third sister. This whole scene where they send out the probe droids too is meant to have a lot of vibes for Empire Strikes Back when Darth Vader and the Imperials send out the probe droids to Hoth. Except because special effects have gotten so much better in present day, they have a little bit more fun with it, so they actually show you the line of all the probe droids getting ready to launch. When Obi-Wan mentions their fake backstory on Tal, that planet hasn't appeared in the canon before, so it's brand new to the series. There are a couple of people and a couple of things that are brand new to the episode, but usually you will see them work in deep cuts for a lot of things. The joke about Obi-Wan's daughter you could take as a wink at his almost relationship with Duchess Satine of the Mandalorians, but canonically he's not supposed to have any biological children. There are just lots of fan theories out there that he might have had a child at some point. The names that Leia uses, Luma, actually did show up inside the Black Spire Outpost recently. That's the live-action Star Wars attraction at Disneyland and Disney World. The name Orden that Obi-Wan is using, though, is brand new to Star Wars. The mole creature, Freck, might actually be a deep-cut Easter egg for that 1986 Droids animated series, the old-school one. During that, there were a sentient mole race on Tatooine that looked kind of similar to the one on the TV show. And I believe this is our first celebrity cameo too. I think this is meant to be Zach Braff doing a special voice as the Mole Man here, so he's unrecognizable, but it is supposed to be Zach Braff. The whole thing with his character is that he's not meant to be shady or anything like that, despite the fact that he's working within the Empire. They're just trying to show you what life is like underneath Imperial rule now. And remember, this is in the Mid-Rim, so the forces of the Empire are way stronger here, way more present. The whole idea that the Empire was able to continue this way because billions and billions of people supported their rule. Like he says, oh, isn't it great to have order now? Don't we love it now? And he's not meant to be evil or anything like that. He's just like this common worker, just oblivious to like the really crazy stuff that the Empire is doing. Then they have this big funny scene with the stormtroopers who are completely oblivious to who Obi-Wan Kenobi and Leia really are, even though he completely gives away their identity during their talk. When he says stormtroopers are very good at their job, it's just a joke about how incompetent stormtroopers have been in the history of Star Wars. They did the same thing during The Mandalorian Season 1 with the scout troopers who were just completely incompetent. When they're leaving though, one of the stormtroopers mentions a T-16, which is another callback to Luke's T-16, bullseyeing womp rats in Baker's Canyon, and the model T-16 that Obi-Wan tried to give him early in the episodes, or will eventually successfully give him in the future, that we later see him playing with during A New Hope. Obi-Wan talks to her about Padme and Anakin Skywalker. He references his own parents and his brother, apparently, which is actually a brand new thing. I don't think they've ever referenced Obi-Wan having a brother previously in the canon.
Mother's shawl, father's hands. I remember a baby.
A baby?
Yes, I think I had a brother.
Obi-Wan having a brother who is potentially still alive out there in the galaxy is our best hope at having more Kenobis in the future of Star Wars if he himself didn't have biological children. He, along with normal Jedi candidates, Padawans, were taken when they're about 4 years old so that they don't develop attachments to their families, which became a big problem, obviously, for Anakin Skywalker. That's why later when Luke Skywalker goes to Yoda to be trained in Empire Strikes Back, he grumbles about him being too old. Nope, too old to begin the training, just like his father. Obi-Wan was born on the Stewjon system. They referenced that in his original family a little during the novelization for Phantom Menace. George Lucas is actually the person who came up with the name of Obi-Wan's planet, Stewjon. It's a play on the name Jon Stewart, the actual TV host, because at this convention he asked George Lucas, where did Obi-Wan come from originally, on the spot. George Lucas just said, oh, he came from Stewjon. He just made it up, literally on stage. And thus, it became Star Wars canon. And his mother and father have never shown up in the animation or live-action series before. Maybe at some point they'll do some more backstory for him in the animated episodes. They hit the next checkpoint and a probe droid winds up identifying him, queuing up Darth Vader and the Inquisitors learning about their presence. I believe this is also our first Wilhelm scream that we get during the series too. It wouldn't be Star Wars if you didn't hear at least one Wilhelm scream during the series. Then they introduce Indira Varma's Imperial Captain character, and she winds up being their contact. Her name is Tala. She's brand new to the Star Wars canon. She's never appeared before. She's just someone who's sympathetic to the Jedi's plight. It also sounds like the Underground Railroad that she operates here, with Quinlan Vos, of all people, another Jedi that winds up showing up from the canon, wind up helping smuggle just pretty much anybody who's running from the Empire, but they specifically reference Jedi and Force sensitives. She's supposed to be the person who Haja had sent them to visit, and it's all meant to be this storyline about Obi-Wan Kenobi finding hope, because earlier they had this whole thing with Obi-Wan thinking that Haja did them dirty, everybody's terrible, why should we have any kind of hope? Cut to later in the episode where he does see a lot of cases of normal people helping him and doing good things. So that by the end of the series, he will recognize, oh, there are good people out there. It is possible for good things to happen again. But the way that Tala talks about it, she said that she and Quinlan Vos have been helping many Jedi and Force sensitives before him. But like I said, they kind of set up this whole running storyline meant to dovetail with Reva's plot in what winds up happening to the Jedi younglings and the other Force sensitives that the Inquisitors are able to capture. If you've played Jedi Fallen Order, it's right out of that storyline. And, big Easter egg, a lot of that is taking place around the same time that this is taking place. One of the other points of interest here, too, is that when that second group of stormtroopers that Indira Varma's Tala character winds up taking out shows up to take Obi-Wan Kenobi, you actually hear a female stormtrooper's voice, which is actually pretty rare in the Star Wars canon. Now, normally the Empire recruits equal opportunity, so there are just as many women stormtroopers as there are male stormtroopers. It's just that in the live-action Star Wars movies, the series before, you don't see a ton of female stormtroopers. So that's what makes this scene kind of rare. When they make it back to town and Leia apologizes to him for running away, she's actually talking about running away the first time back on Alderaan when she was captured in the first place. They introduce the Ned B droid while she's talking about Lola, just to set up, I think the droids wind up helping them in the next episode escape. Then when she starts talking about Quinlan Vos, the other Jedi who survived Order 66, helping her out with this Underground Railroad, helping other Force sensitives out, I think it is possible that we could see a big cameo scene with him either in later episodes or in a future series. Like, they wouldn't go through the trouble of actually mentioning him by name if they weren't actually going to use him as a character. Everybody's just waiting for them to name drop Mace Windu at some point. The way she explains it is what they do is they'll smuggle them to the Outer Rim where they'll give them new identities and they'll just hide out, kind of like what's happening with Ahsoka Tano right now. Like, she's going by an assumed name, not using her Jedi abilities quite as much, the same way that Grogu is, just trying to go to ground. It was also what Haja was trying to help that other kid and his mother do in episode 2. He was Force sensitive and they were trying to escape the Empire. There are a bunch of Jedi scrawlings all over the walls of all the Force sensitives and the other Jedi who have passed through there. This is the symbol of the Jedi Order. The message that Quinlan Vos left and that they read specifically said, "Only when the eyes are closed can you truly see the way." That's meant to be an Easter egg for a couple different things. It's meant to be a reference for the original trilogy where you saw Obi-Wan Kenobi closing his eyes as Darth Vader was getting ready to kill him because it was him seeing the way to eternal life. But I think it's also meant to be a metaphor for this series for the Jedi Force vision power like Force sight, closing his eyes when he's facing Vader so that his other senses in the Force become more powerful, making him a better fighter, despite the fact that a lot of his abilities have waned in the last 10 years of him not using them. So I think he'll wind up using this technique during one of his rematch fights with Darth Vader. They make another reference to Leia being a good fighter when she's older, just another reference to the events of the original trilogy. Then the reason Obi-Wan Kenobi has this panic attack as they get ready to escape is because he's sensing Darth Vader's presence in the Force. It's like this miasma of dark side energy that enters this arena here. Then I love the way they do this big Darth Vader reveal. They start with his heavy breathing first, like you hear the breath, then they do a slow reveal starting with his boots working up the Sith armor. And remember, this is the first time that Obi-Wan Kenobi has seen Anakin Skywalker wearing the Sith armor, so even though he doesn't actually know that it's him, he can sense him through the Force so he knows that it is Anakin, like, oh my god, it's him. And you do also see that Darth Vader is able to sense Obi-Wan Kenobi's presence through the Force. That's why he keeps looking around all over the place as he darts around. Also, RIP to all those common townspeople that Darth Vader took out with the Force as he was walking up trying to find Obi-Wan Kenobi. He just seems like he's really worked up, just really pissed off, ready for that fight. Big thing though, remember, he doesn't know anything about Leia, so if he's sensing someone in the Force, he thinks that it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, but he might actually be sensing Leia through the Force and just not realizing that it's her also that he's sensing. Then we get our first legit Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Darth Vader rematch scene. It is brief this first time, even though they kind of drag it out a little bit. He's mostly just trying to lead Darth Vader away from Leia so that she can escape. When he speaks to him for the first time, he mostly taunts him and references the events of Revenge of the Sith about how he still blames Obi-Wan Kenobi for everything bad that has happened to him. I am what you made me. Remember, it's only been 10 years since that happened, and even though it seems like it's been a long time, Darth Vader is still super pissed off about the way things went down, and he's been obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi for the last 10 years. So this whole scene of their rematch here is like him trying to enjoy the moment, just dragging it along, having fun with his dinner, so to speak. Taunting Obi-Wan Kenobi, trying to make him feel all the same pain that he felt during Revenge of the Sith. Love the opening shot of him igniting the red lightsaber too, just to show you how much he's changed. The last 10 years, he's also been trying to snuff out everything that has remained of Anakin Skywalker within him too. Obviously, that winds up being unsuccessful because ultimately, by Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker is able to help him redeem himself. But at this point, the pain is all still fresh in his mind. This is also the first time that we've seen Obi-Wan Kenobi use his lightsaber since Revenge of the Sith that we know of. I mean, he may have used it briefly when he first came to Tatooine, but it sounds like he hasn't used it in about 10 years. The other funny thing you may have recognized during this is that you hear a lot of Darth Vader's emotes, a lot of his grunting sounds. That's all right out of the classic original trilogy. You hear a lot of these classic Darth Vader sound effects if you play a lot of the video games too. When he's taunting Obi-Wan Kenobi about growing weak in the last 10 years, it's mostly because Obi-Wan stopped using his abilities. The same thing happened to Grogu, like he had to start remembering his training with Luke Skywalker's help. But it's also meant to be a clever Easter egg for the original trilogy in A New Hope with their lightsaber fight, because that fight was way simpler than the last fight you saw them have during Revenge of the Sith. So they kind of want to explain canonically why their lightsaber technique changes so much and becomes so much simpler in that time gap between those movies. The reason why it seems like Darth Vader has grown way less nimble, even though he's grown more powerful in the dark side of the Force. Even during Rogue One, it seems like his technique has slowed down just a little bit, like he's not quite as nimble. It's because he's had to adapt his fighting technique to that really heavy Sith armor that he's wearing. So literally, he's just not quite as quick as he used to be, even though he is still very powerful. All the music during their fight scene here has echoes of the classic John Williams Darth Vader theme music, but most of it is meant to be brand new music for the episode. Their fight scene is actually very reminiscent of Darth Vader's first fight scene with Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back, when he was mostly stalking him, trying to capture him and turn him to the dark side. Except the difference here is that he's not trying to capture Obi-Wan Kenobi to turn him, he just wants to torture him for a long time. One of my favorite WTF moments too is when he literally tries to recreate the torture scene from Revenge of the Sith where he wants to burn Obi-Wan Kenobi the same way that he burned on Mustafar. That is hardcore, but remember, he's been obsessed about this for the last 10 years, so that's why he seems like he's enjoying this so much. Tala is able to rescue him from the stormtroopers briefly, so they'll have to deal with that and try to escape and save Leia during episode 4 next week. And while he was trying to lead Darth Vader away, they did have that whole subplot with Reva finding and capturing Leia, so RIP to that transport pilot that she took out. Like I said though, next week's episode will mostly be about them escaping, and they try to set that whole thing with the Ned B droids rising up and trying to help them. So I think that will be the key to them actually making it off planet. But as part of the Reva storyline and learning about what happens to the younglings and the way that they twist them to the dark side and try to make them into Inquisitors, I think eventually we'll see Obi-Wan Kenobi back at the Fortress Inquisitorius, because there is a big fight scene in the trailers inside that hangar bay that seems like they are trying to fight Obi-Wan Kenobi. But it was a great episode, loved all the Darth Vader scenes, just loved the slow reveal and then just hearing him again for the first time and seeing Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker even though it was a hallucination. I'm really hoping we see some of that during the Ahsoka series as well. If you spotted any big Easter eggs in the episode that I didn't talk about in the video, just write them below in the comments. I will do a bunch of Darth Vader bonus videos this week too. There is so much to talk about. My full Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 4 video will post next week after they release it, and I'll name a giveaway winner in my next big Star Wars video. Everyone click here for that brand new Obi-Wan Kenobi Qui-Gon Jinn video to learn what's going on with him, and click here for my full Mandalorian Season 3 trailer video and Easter eggs. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.